Hey guys, peace and understanding. Bringing a video to you today. I want to continue following suit with chapter 2. I was able to get that going with the 9:30 class. So we ran into some little situations, as you know, on Brightwave, the textbook. Some students have still been saying that they are not able to access the book. And it's okay if you having issues with that, if you choose to physically get the book from Amazon online. It's there for you to obtain. So let's jump right back into this, guys. I just want to, as always, extract some of the more relevant points as we begin moving forward and discussing these complex societies of man. The complex societies of man. And we're going to be looking at, I'm going to mention the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Hebrews, and the Persians. But we're going to talk about what are some of the attributes that made these societies complex. What are some of the reasons from the PowerPoint that was given to you that man moved from the state of nature, meaning man in his infancy, solitary man, moving from an individualized group, foraging, hunter-gatherer per se, to man coming to the realization that individually or in his early states that he was in a precarious situation. Man realizing that there's strength in numbers, that there's power in numbers, and also that there are opportunities to procreate, there are opportunities to just utilize the strength of numbers. Okay, so that's when we talked about the state of nature. So I alluded to some crucial points about the development of handwriting. I talked about cuneiform. I mentioned pictograms, which are hieroglyphics and other imagery that were used by more primitive people that told a story. Pictograms. Cuneiform, according to the textbook, it's about 5,000 years ago, and was used by the ancient Sumerians in Mesopotamia. Now, one other thing that I want to point out is that when we're looking at history and creating and developing these timelines, we are going to understand, I want to bring to your attention that the geography over time has changed. Case in point, when we talk about Egypt, I'm going to introduce that, but Mesopotamia is now modern day Iraq. The names and places of these geographical locations have changed over time due to various reasons. Who could tell me why? Okay. Invasions, enslavement, but for the most part, it was invasions and consolidation into an empire, being colonized, being under the yoke of oppression or another system of control. So the names are going to change. So Mesopotamia is modern day Iraq. Iraq is near Iran. Iran was once Persia, okay, etc., etc. Israel was once Palestine, okay, etc., etc. Different geographical names. There's a whole slew of names I can just run off and share with you, but that's for another time. So I said that handwriting, for the most part, brought about the creation of an alphabet and a way to disseminate a spoken language, and it also brought about, as far as history is concerned, a way for records to be maintained and kept, a way for stories to be told, different accounts to be told. There's an old cliche that to the victor goes the spoils, and to the winner, he is the teller of history. Typically, history is debatable and biased at oftentimes. Whoever the victor in a social conflict would be, typically, that person will have the right to tell the story because the other people have been subjugated. So writing is very important. Record keeping, educationally, for the sake of history, to telling of accounts. Very important in a complex society. So I want to, when I said cuneiform, which is a series of little web-shaped letters, if you will, that were placed on stone tablets. And if you can see that there, that is cuneiform, a little graph of how cuneiform looks from the text. But cuneiform was introduced again in Mesopotamia, but one of the most noteworthy individuals that utilized this in the kingdom of Samaria was King Hammurabi and his code. Hammurabi's code was a series of legal and municipal laws that were introduced in 1755 BCE, the Code of Hammurabi. Access your textbook on Brightwave, follow along, go back and highlight that or make notes. The Code of Hammurabi. According to the textbook, it says a set of punishments for breaking laws, including fines, physical punishments, mutilation, whippings, and burnings. Typically, it demanded an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and at least among social equals and higher ranking peoples, the paying of fines. So Hammurabi had a diverse law that he imposed upon the people. As I said, the term citizen comes from the Latin word civilization. Civilization comes from the Latin word civilis, which means to be a citizen, to be a member or a part of a municipality. And as man galvanized themselves and these social groups began to be larger, grow larger, of course, coming out of the state of nature, man that created rules, in other words, simply stated do's or don'ts, the bigger the population got, you needed order, you needed structure, you needed stability. So law was a staple or a signature of a civilized society to have orders. Those entities, if you will, that were not constructed by the rule of law with some form of leadership were considered to be barbarian. Now, barbarian is a term that kind of came along with the Greeks and Romans, and that's really their thing. Well, anybody that was non-Greek was considered to be a barbarian, not a member of the polis. Okay, but that's different. So Hammurabi's code, excellent example of law under the rule of a society under the rule of law. Now let me introduce the Egyptians. As I talked about geography as it relates to history and the changing of names, which did occur. The original name of Egypt is Kemet or Kemet. Egypt is a name that was imposed upon this land by Greeks. The word Egyptos, Egypt. But Kemet, Kemet, means land of the blacks. Did you hear that? The original inhabitants of this land called it land of the blacks. Now there are some Anglo-Saxon Egyptologists which says that, okay, contrary to this belief, that is our assertion,